Well, hello again, everyone. My name is Ben Rhodes. I'm the Senior Vice President with CAMS. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great topic, something that I know none of you have to ever deal with. But in light of some of the things that are going on in today's world, we felt talking about dealing with difficult people and occasionally board members, homeowners, and perhaps your family. Um,
Mhm.
this actually grew out of, well, Steve, I know you did this presentation a number of times, but a few months ago, Steve's law partner, Jim Slaughter, wrote a blog about board member ethics and things that are going on within boards. And so I've reached out and said, I'd love for y'all to do a presentation. So they had this, and we decided to present it all to you today. So reminder, we do record these sessions, and so you can find the recordings on our website, camsmgt.com, in our video library. So that is available for you to share with others. And we do have all of our other sessions shown there as well. So please feel free to take a look. It's a great website with lots of great content for y'all to see. We will also take questions at the end of the presentation. So if you do have questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A option located down at the bottom of the page of the Zoom app. And I will read those questions to Steve at the end. So Steve, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We got a big crowd, which is great. Uh, the Again, my name is Steve Black. I'm one of the shareholders and partners here at Law Firm Carolinas. I only practice homeowners association and condominium law. I have done it for about 25 years. And we have 5 offices. We have Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Wilmington, and now Greenville, South Carolina. So we do a lot of this kind of work. This is one of my favorite presentations. I've done this a couple of different times. It's grown, it's gotten better, and I'm excited about presenting it to you all because it's not just kind of rogue law. There's some law in here about homeowners associations and condos, but this is more of a practical discussion about how to really deal with difficult people. And I've expanded it to not just your other board members, which we're going to talk a lot about that, not just about homeowners, going to talk a lot about that, but this can be used with anybody. It can be used with your family members. It can be used with people at your church, at your whatever wherever you deal with difficult people. These strategies will work. Having done this 25 years, and especially in the homeowners association world, I've noticed, and I think a lot of people have noticed, that people have just gotten more difficult. I don't know if it was COVID. I don't know I don't know what happened, but just especially in the last 5 or 8 years, just across the board, people seem to be more difficult. And so I think this is going to be a good and timely presentation for you all. My experience has been that you have unreasonable people, okay, and that's okay. You can talk to them. A lot of times they can see your points. You can educate them on some things, and they'll see the light, and maybe you'll see the light on their discussion. You have irrational people. Okay, irrational people, you can't really reason with them very well. Sometimes, they have to get outside counsel to help them see the light on things. And then you have the ones that are just kind of off the charts. Okay, and this presentation will help you learn ways to deal with all of those, in addition to some other levels of difficulty. So my first exercise for you all tonight is to do this. I want you to mentally pick your difficult person. Okay, we all have one. It might be a board member, it might be our homeowner, it might be a family member. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But think of that difficult person and think of the really difficult people in your mind. And I'm going to introduce you tonight to 3 people for our presentation. Number 1 is Stan. Stan is a homeowner in your neighborhood. Okay, he's the difficult homeowner in your community that you're dealing with. Okay, he's the one that's firing off all those emails. He's the ones that coming to the meeting and taking up the time and hijacking the meeting. Okay, so Stan, for my purposes tonight. Then we've got Gail. Gail is a board member who's difficult. Okay, so Stan and Gail. And then Mike. Mike is a family member. Okay, Mike's your brother. Okay, and the reason I'm using Mike is because that is my brother. Okay, he's not difficult, but it was easy for me to remember. So you've got Stan, homeowner, Gail, board member, and Mike, the family member. All right, the first lesson here tonight is an acronym called NICE, Nice. First step in neutralize your emotions. Okay, sounds really simple, everybody, but understand you've got to be calm when dealing with a difficult person. If you go in hot, or if you go in with guns blazing, guess what's going to happen? Bad things. Okay, it takes really two people to fight, and if you're not fighting, then you can control that more. So neutral, just recognize that you need to bring it down a notch. Okay, very important. Two, identify the type of person you're dealing with. And this is going to be a big piece of what we talk about tonight, and it's incredibly helpful. Identify the type of person. There are three: situationally difficult people, okay, strategically difficult people, and simply difficult people. Situationally difficult people are the ones that you're probably going to deal with the most in your life. They are upset or they're being difficult because of a situation. Maybe their fence didn't get approved. Maybe they got an enforcement letter. Maybe they got a collection letter. It's the situation that makes them difficult. Strategically difficult people are the ones who are trying to make you do something, trying to make the board go in this direction, trying to make the association go in a certain direction, trying to make your family go in a certain direction. Okay? Or just simply difficult. We all know who that is. Okay, just a simply difficult person. C, control the encounter. Okay, this is where it's kind of on your terms, on your turf, in your sandbox. Okay, and neutralizing your emotions is part of that, but you need to control the encounter. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a little while. And then really the magic piece to this entire presentation is exploring options to solve the problem. Okay, and I think you'll learn some new stuff about that today. All right, let's talk about our first person, the situationally difficult person. As I mentioned, this person is facing a stressor. Their fence wasn't approved, okay, or they're in collections, or they're having a personal problem. Their reactions are out of proportion to the events. They're just overreacting to something, okay? But normally, you like them. You might have them over for dinner. You might have a beer with them, normally. But because of the situation, they're being difficult, all right? This is going to be most of your homeowners and most of your board members and probably most of the people in your family or in your life that you deal with, okay? So these strategies you can use tonight, and some of you may need to. Tactics for handling situationally difficult people. Number one, you work to neutralize their emotions, okay? I talked to you earlier that you have to neutralize your own emotions first. Don't go in hot. And then there are steps to neutralize their emotions. And those steps are these. The acronym EAR, E-A-R. Empathize with them, ask them questions, and then reassure them. Okay? What this does, and the book that I got this out of, which I'll show you at the end, was it's almost like a car. They come in fifth gear at 100 miles an hour. Okay? The idea is to bring them down to fourth gear, and then third gear, and then second gear, bring them down to where you can talk about it, neutralizing their emotions. So EAR, empathize. I'm really sorry you're going through this. I get it. You got a demand letter for unpaid dues. I'd be upset about that also. Okay? Empathize with them. Okay? Yeah, I understand you didn't get your pool approved. I can see why that would be upsetting. I might be upset also if that happened to me. Second, ask questions. And this is really the disarming part. Tell me more about the pool that you asked for. Tell me why, you feel this way about the family issue. Can I ask this question? Okay. Third is reassure. Reassure them. Look, thank you for that extra information. I didn't know that. Let's keep talking. Let's figure out if there's something we can do about this. EAR, empathize, ask questions, reassure. So you go through that in cycles. Okay, fifth gear. They're coming in 100 miles an hour. Empathize, ask questions, reassure. Then, if you need to do it again to get them into third gear, empathize, ask questions, reassure. Second gear. So bringing them down. Okay. And it sounds elementary, but trust me, it worked. I use this in my legal practice and I use this in my personal life. So that's for situationally difficult people. I wanted to go do one more thing. Let's run a little scenario here with maybe a board member. Okay. A board member is really upset over the decision that was made on the pool contract, whatever it can be, fill in the blank. Okay. And they're mad. Normally, they're regular people. You kind of like seeing them. You like talking to them. They may be even a friend of yours, but they're hot about this issue. Okay. Empathize. All right. I understand that you have a lot of questions about this pool contract. I got your emails. I read all those emails. I understand that you disagreed. And I hope we can talk this through. Empathize. Ask questions. Remind me again what your top two problems were with the contract. Just share. I don't remember. I read your emails, but help me with that. Reassure. Okay, I hear what you're saying about those 2 points. Your first point, yeah, that's a strong point. Let's keep talking about this. And then if you have to bring it around again, empathize again. Well, this helped a lot, for you to focus this for me. So you see the point with the board member. Mike, the family situation. Mike's upset about the way the estate is flowing from your grandparents, let's say. He feels like he's getting shafted on the inheritance. Let's just use that as an example. And Mike, I understand. You loved Granny and I loved Granny, and these are always hot issues. Anytime you deal with money and anytime you deal with inheritance, tell me this. Tell me what you think the problem is. Ask the questions, okay, and then reassure. Look, Mike, you're my brother. All right, we're gonna get through this. We'll work this out, and then just keep doing it. Okay, it works. All right, strategically difficult people. Strategically difficult people. These are the people that send you the 10 emails that are a page long about what a terrible job the board is doing or what a terrible job the manager is doing, and your budget was terrible and you should have done it this way, and I demand that you reopen the budget discussions, or I demand that you reopen the whatever it is and do it differently. Do it my way. Okay. The strategically difficult person is trying to make you change something or trying to steer you in their direction. The budget, is the example I did. They want to change the budget. They didn't like the way the amendment process was followed for the amendment to the restrictions. I think you did it wrong here, and Bob didn't get a copy of the notice, and just pelt you with things trying to make you change your directions. Right? What do you do with those guys? Okay. Again, they try to convince you to play by their rules. They try to, use certain strategy to disarm, overwhelm you, frustrate you, manipulate you, and the encounter. And that's really for us as board members, or you guys as board members from homeowners, that's the one that just sends you 6 emails a day, trying to overwhelm you and frustrate you and make you give up. Strategies for these people. There are a couple of different strategies that these strategically difficult people use. And let me tell you, when you see these and you use them the first time, you're going to say, oh my gosh, that was easy. I wish I'd known this 10 years ago. False deadlines. This is by far my favorite. When the homeowner says, or the board member says, or the family member says, I need to hear from you by 5 o'clock on Thursday. I must have my answer by 5 o'clock on Thursday. Ask what the time pressure is. Mrs. Homeowner, I got your email setting a deadline for Thursday at 5 o'clock. Do you mind if I ask what's behind that time pressure? Is there something I don't know here? What happens if I miss this deadline? Guess what the answer is 98% of the time? Nothing. They have just an arbitrary deadline that they set. And so you're kind of pushing back on their aggressiveness and pushing back on their strategy there. And very rarely is there really a deadline. Take it or leave it. Okay. This is my final offer. They say, this is the way it has to be. And if you don't do it my way, I'm going to withdraw my offer. I'm going to change my mind if you don't do it exactly the way I want to do it. Just to tell them that you don't appreciate that. Look, I feel like you're putting me in a corner here. Okay, we'll use Mike, my brother, as an example. You know, on the estate issue from the grandparents' estate. You know, he says, I want $10,000 more, final offer. That's it. Well, Mike, you know, that you're putting me in a box here. I mean, that's your final offer. You don't want to talk about this anymore. The other strategy there is to agree to a portion of the issue with conditions. Okay. So that homeowner that wants all these records by 5 o'clock Thursday, we don't understand the time pressure. We don't like being put in the corner. And maybe we give them two of the things by Thursday at 5. Okay. If we have to. The bluff. The bluff. This is my second favorite. The homeowner says, if I don't get what I need by Thursday at 5, I'm talking to my lawyer. You'll hear from my lawyer. What do we do? Well, I'm sorry that things are not going the way you'd like. Do you mind please giving us the name and contact information for your attorney just so we'll have it in our file? 95% of the time, there is no lawyer. There is no lawyer, and they skirt around that question. Well, I'm not going to give that to you until, but it goes toe to toe with them, and sometimes you just have to do that. The nibbling, okay? Nibbling is kind of a negotiating tactic that they teach, and this is, okay, we've got a deal. You get A, B, C, and D. We've agreed on A, B, C, and D. It's done. Oh, wait. They want E. Okay, E. Oh, they want F. Right? That happens a lot with homeowners. You know, they want to see the financial records here. They want to see the contracts here. They want to see this here. And then when you give them some of that, or give them what they ask for, then they want more and more and more. Right? The way you deal with that is, you can ask them, look, is this a deal breaker? If we don't give you this, what's going to happen? And you force them into saying it's not that important. Okay. That one's a little bit tougher. Like, I could probably do a whole presentation on nibbling because it's a negotiating tactic, but just be aware that it exists and recognize it when it happens and say, wait, Steve said something about this. When we give them A, B, C, D, and now they're asking for E. Steve said something. Ganging up. Okay. This is a good strategy for difficult people, strategically difficult people. This is where you've got Stan. Remember Stan? Stan was our homeowner. Okay. Stan has 5 people that support what Stan says, right? And Stan's copying them on all the emails, or they're sitting together at the annual meeting, or, and it may be even, Gail on the board. Gail may have somebody else that thinks similarly to her on these difficult issues. Then you find the weakest link. Okay. And that's not a derogatory term. You just find the person that seems to be the most reasonable. Okay. Stan's got 5 people. Let's talk to the third one. Hey, you pull them aside or email them aside and just ask, look, we're trying to get up underneath all of this stuff. Do you mind talking to me about this? We want to, get this worked out. And then largely ignore the others. Silence. Okay. This doesn't happen too much in the HOA homeowner world. But in the other areas of your life, it's gonna happen. If somebody just stops talking, they didn't get what they want. Part of their strategy is silence. Okay. Then you can match their silence. That's number 1. And then you can start asking simple questions. Okay. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. If you have a significant other, and for some reason one of you is not speaking, okay, let's just say they're mad and they go silent on you. Then asking simple questions. Hey, honey, where's the remote? Hey, honey, did we, whatever the answer is. And when it was in a group of silence, you engage another person who might be like the Stan example for the homeowner. There's 5 of them and 4 of them are silent. Try to go after one of them and see if you can break that ice. Outrageous behavior. Okay. If they truly are outrageous, the strategically difficult person is pounding the table, raising their voice, sending emails with all caps. Just ignore it. Okay. I feel very comfortable standing before a judge and showing the judge emails with all caps that call us names and call us incompetent and call us, and the judge will read between the lines. So, and be okay with us ignoring that and making them be civil to us. All right. The final type of difficult person. I hope you don't know too many of these, but the simply difficult person. They're just difficult. They're the bullies. They're unreasonable. They're irrational. Many times they're in a position of power and they can punish, if you don't do what they want, maybe in a job situation. A lot of times they're power hungry. And for those of you who don't know who this is from The Devil Wears Prada. She was the boss in that movie. That's where she came from. One of my wife's favorite movies, which is why it's in here. But they're more difficult to deal with. You have to be a lot stronger in these simply difficult people. Here are the strategies. When they are locked into their idea, okay, and this could be a board member. Let's talk about Gail. Gail is just not going to budge on this. This is the way it is. We're signing this landscaping contract. We're signing this pool contract. That's the way it is. Or you've got your homeowner that is blowing you up about this is what absolutely has to happen. Or your family member. What do? You subtly question their authority. You subtly question their conclusions. And this is an art. You got to get good at it. But when you do, it works. Asking a question. Hey, Stan, on this landscaping contract, are there any other ideas or thoughts or suggestions that you have or that any other board members have about this contract? Who have you talked to, Stan, on this issue, and what are their thoughts? I envision kind of people at work, maybe you have a simply difficult person at your job and they're just locked into an idea. I wonder what the other side would say about this. I wonder what that landscaper would think about this. Do we need to talk to some other people? Do we need to talk to some experts about this? So you're not challenging them. You're not going toe to toe with them. You're asking really good questions that you can't really deny are good questions. Okay. Do we need to talk to some experts? How can somebody say no to that? Okay. Or are there other issues we haven't thought of? That's a hard one for them to get around as well. In really desperate situations, focus your resources. Okay. And what that means is, let's say the fight is over A, B, C, and D. Okay. And you're not going to win them all. So pick one. Pick their weakest issue and focus all your resources on that point to win. Okay. The Mike example, my brother, and that's totally fictitious, but, Mike in the estate wants 4 things. And, you pick his weakest point on the 4th one and you focus all your resources on that and try to win that point. Okay. If he's being simply difficult. This is kind of innate, but it's not obvious a lot of times. When dealing with simply difficult people, obtain allies. Okay. There's strength in numbers. Countries do this. If you think about it, you've heard of allies in the world. Why do they need allies? Well, they need allies because they're in a weaker position of a stronger person. So you gather together with other people, there's strength in numbers. Memberships in HOAs do this a lot. If Gail, no, it is Stan. Stan's our homeowner. Stan doesn't have a lot of leverage with himself or maybe 4 people. But if Stan can get 40 people, then obviously we got to listen to Stan. He's obtained some allies. So get people behind you that think similarly when you're dealing with a very simply difficult person. All right, the nuclear option, okay, on simply difficult situations. Okay, and I'm talking about really bad situations that that you feel like there's no way out of. Okay, whether personally, professionally, HOA, family, you've got to determine your best alternatives. Okay, you always have alternatives. Okay, For example, and I don't want to sell this too hard, but truly, if you're dealing with a rogue, terrible board member and they just stress you out and you think about it all the time and you should be thinking about other things, what are your alternatives? Well, one of them, obviously, is to quit the board. Okay, that's an alternative. Now, I'm not telling you to quit the board. I'm telling you to determine your best alternative. Okay, I do have an alternative. This is not my life. I could quit. Having an alternative by itself empowers you. Okay, that sounds really kind of silly, but it's true. At the job, I could quit my job. I could quit. Would terrible things happen? Maybe. Would my life turn upside down for a minute? Maybe. But you have an alternative. It will empower you. Maybe next year I won't go to Thanksgiving. Mike was so bad last year. And I tried all these strategies that Steve told me about, and it was awful. Maybe I won't go to Thanksgiving next year. Now, I hope you do. But having that that alternative in your mind gives you some power. And when you feel like you have no other alternatives, I mean, I can't imagine you can't think of an alternative, but if you can't, get a second opinion. Talk to somebody about it, maybe a professional about it, and figure out what the alternatives are. There are always alternatives. And was my big point on all this. Alternatives alone level the playing field when you're dealing with a simply difficult person. Okay, it empowers you, it levels the playing field, and they don't have all the power. When you're dealing with a simply difficult person, you got to bring them back to the issues. This is more of another presentation I'm glad to do later, but it could be on its own. It's a lot, but bring them back to the point, when they're trying to pound away at you about something, and you say, hey, look, let's just move on. Let's stay focused. Let's go over here and focus on the problem and not worry about this smoke that the simply difficult person or may be throwing up. All right. So where are we? We've talked about the 3 different categories of difficult people. Situationally difficult. Okay. Those are the ones that are normally nice people. They're in a tough spot, so they're being difficult. And that's the EAR, EAR, empathize, ask questions, reassure. Strategically difficult, those are the ones that are trying to get something from you or trying to make you do something or not do something. And they're using strategies to do that. And I've helped you with some of those strategies on the bluffing and the nibbling and the silence and all of that. And then the simply difficult people we just went over. Okay, so those are the 3 types of personalities. And I'll tell you, if you leave this presentation today and the next time you bump into a difficult person, you're going to be able to put them into one of these 3 boxes. Okay, which is kind of the point. What do you do then? Whether it's situationally difficult, strategically difficult, or simply difficult, doesn't matter. The next step is you brainstorm options. Okay, this is the magic part I was telling you about. You brainstorm options. Now that you've kind of, I don't want to say disarmed them, but now that you've either brought their emotions down through the EAR process, you've met them toe to toe on some of their strategies with the strategically difficult, and you've, I'll say, softened up the simply difficult by, gently challenging them and opening the door to some tough conversations. Once you've done that, your difficult person is now in a position to discuss the resolution. Okay, now you've leveled the playing field largely. Let's solve the problem. Expanding the option pie. This was when I learned this, 15 years ago or so, it truly was eye-opening. Most people think there are only 1 or 2 solutions, maybe 3 solutions to a problem. Okay, so that's the pie. It's broken into 3 pieces. That's never the case. I've been doing this a long time now. You always can expand the option pie. The pie is the same size, but there's more pieces to it. There's the more possible solutions. How do you do that? Brainstorm crazy options together. Okay, so you're with the situationally difficult person, strategically difficult person, or simply difficult person. You start brainstorming ideas. Okay, here's the point. You cooperate on brainstorming, and that involves everybody. Okay, now you're trying to solve the problem together. It's not him versus you or her versus you. It's, we got this problem. We brought everybody down to a level playing field. Let's solve the problem. Okay, What do I mean by that? No, not yet. Doing it this way, bringing them in, start talking about it, allows everyone to save face. Let me give you a perfect example of this. Okay. HOA fence restriction. Fences can't be more than 5 feet tall. It's right there. It's in black and white. Okay. This family moved down from somewhere and had a couple of children, and I think it was a 4 foot restriction, excuse me, a 4 foot fence restriction, hard baked into the declaration, black and white. Nothing we can do about it. Homeowner comes in, buys the house, and then applies for a fence that's 5 feet tall. And we said, oh, we're sorry, denied. Well, this family they went beyond, they were situationally difficult, but they went to strategically difficult and almost to simply difficult. I mean, it got very, very bad. I mean, it was all about the safety of their children, safety of their pets. They played all the cards. It seemed that the pie only had two pieces. They either get their 5 foot fence in violation of the restrictions, or they don't get their 5 foot fence, and we probably end up in litigation. Okay, there's only two pieces. And that's what most people think. But this is the skill I'm trying to teach you. There's more pieces. Get creative, brainstorm. We actually got into a room, it was in mediation, because they'd filed a lawsuit. And we were in mediation, and we started just brainstorming. What can we do here? I mean, obviously we could amend the declaration, and we could try that. That's got to get 75% of all the homeowners. And I can tell you all the homeowners weren't excited about a 5 foot fence. Two, we can amend the declaration and just let that lot have a 5 foot fence. Wow, that's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, getting all the homeowners to consent for one lot. Plus it causes other problems. So just brainstorming ideas on how to solve the problem. Here's what solved it. I mean, it was amazing. I can't remember who thought of it. I wish I could take credit for it, but I didn't come up with it. Somebody said, wait a minute, so it can't be more than 4 feet from the ground. Yes. Okay, well, could we build up the ground? Let's build a 1 foot berm and put a 4 foot fence on top of it. You have 5 feet. Wow. Okay. Brainstorming, coming up with solutions, working together to come up with those solutions. Everybody was invested in solving the problem, and that's what they did. Lawsuit dismissed. Restrictions were enforced. So, I can tell you without a doubt, without these strategies of bringing them down and getting them into a room and brainstorming solutions and using these strategies, I don't think that case would have settled. I think a judge or jury would have had to have decided that case. All right. There are times when you have to just walk away from it. Okay. And this is more of really well, it applies to everything. But when you have a difficult situation, maybe beyond situational, beyond strategic, maybe even beyond simply difficult, sometimes you just have to get away from it. Okay. Whether it's the HOA board, whether it's your job, whether it's your, whatever the situation is. Maybe I don't see Mike for a while because of it. And this is the nuclear option, obviously, but you can't live in a situation like that where you're living up there all the time. Before you walk away, planning your walk away will help. Planning your walk away gives you power. Look, I'm going to this board meeting. Gail's going to be there. I can walk away. I could walk away, but I'm not going to. But I know I can. Powerful. Gives you a plan. And that can be with your job. That can be with whatever. Walking away is always an option. Okay. Now, I've done this presentation, before over the years, and I'll tell you, I had to add a slide. And the slide I had to add was about narcissists. I had to do quite a bit of research about narcissists not too long ago because of the situation that we had. And the definition of a narcissist is basically someone who can't empathize with someone else, or they can't see the other side of things. They are right. And it's not an ego thing. It's really a condition, and they can't help it. You're not, well, there's injured narcissist and grandiose narcissist. There's two different types, but in my opinion, you kind of have to deal with them the same. You can't really reason with them. All the strategies I've shared with you tonight don't work. And it's very, very tough. So what is our advice? Well, obviously they're unemotional, they're incapable of empathy on the grand scale, on the grandiose scale. Everything revolves around them. Okay, every approach, every perception is theirs. They truly believe they are right, and they cannot be convinced otherwise. Okay. The frustrating part about narcissists, and this isn't for everybody, obviously, but overwhelmingly in what I've read, it is typically they're very charming, they're outgoing, and they're fun to be around, which makes it even harder because they're easy to be friends with, but then you get into a difficult situation and it is rough. It is very rough. Um, Sometimes they are as good as they think they are, and this comes from me and my experience. Is the person that we were dealing with believed they were right on a lot of things, and they were. I mean, they really were educated in that direction, and so it was hard to, well, it was hard to challenge them because they were right a lot. How do you deal with them? What's the secret? Try not to. Don't. I mean, if you are forced to work for or be around a narcissist, just try to avoid them. All right, finishing up here. This is a homeowners association presentation, so I wanted to add this piece to it, an extra piece to it. How do we deal with difficult board members specifically? Okay. One of the ways you can do it, in addition to all the things I've taught you tonight, is a board code of conduct. Okay. There's lots of these out there on the internet. CAI, Community Association Institute, has a very good one that's been worked on by some really smart people. And it really is just, 10 or 15 bullet points of things you should do as a board member. Okay. Clarifies expectations, it promotes respect, ethical governance. It's really helpful for newer board members because they haven't kind of been in the trenches before. And sometimes you end up with heated discussions, which is okay. But it helps guide the new and inexperienced directors about behavior, especially confidentiality. Big topic. I get 2 calls a week about a board member that's sharing all the information from somewhere, and conflicts. What are real conflicts? Issues can arise when there's aspirational codes, are misused, and disciplinary tools. Here's what that means. The problem with codes of conduct: do I support them? Yes. Do I think they're a great tool? Yes. Do I think they do some good? Yes. What's wrong with them? There's no easy way to enforce them. Okay. For example, if your code of conduct says that you won't share confidential information and one of your board members does, and what's confidential and what's not is a whole nother presentation, but let's presume it's truly confidential information. What can we do about it? Can we throw them off the board based on the code of conduct? You signed this code of conduct, you violated it, you're out. No. 99.9% of the time, no. There's not any real North Carolina or South Carolina law that's helpful there to help us enforce the code of conduct. Okay, there's some strategies we can think about, but the best use of the code of conduct is this: twofold. One, it's something that you can take to a reasonable person and say, hey, Gail, you signed this. You gave us your word you wouldn't do this, and you've done this and this. That's a violation of this code. You've promised not to do those things. Can we please not do them anymore? So it has some kind of political or personal value to it. But beyond that, it's really used as evidence for a removal process. Okay. And almost all removal processes, if you're going to remove a board member from the board, if you're going to remove from the board, you almost certainly have to have a meeting of the entire membership in a place, maybe virtual, and air the dirty laundry. Gail has done this, and this. And therefore, we've called this meeting to let the membership vote on whether they should be removed from the board of directors or not. And almost all the documents say you have to have a membership meeting with a vote, with quorum present, and a majority of those voting vote to remove them. Okay, that's kind of universal. The code of ethics or the code of conduct can be used at the removal meeting to say, look, not only did Gail do 1, 2, 3, and 4, but 2 and 3 are right here on this code of conduct, and she signed it. And so she should be removed. So it's basically evidence at a removal meeting. All right. Now, the 3 books that if you have any interest in learning more about this, I would highly encourage you to look at these 3 books. Bullies, Tyrants, and Impossible People, fantastic book. A lot of this material came from that. Getting to Yes is a negotiating book. Okay, that's about negotiations, which blends really nicely with resolving things with difficult people. And then Difficult Conversations, how to handle those. So these are 3 books that, if you're interested, you take a look at. A lot of my material came from those things. But that's what I've got for you tonight for the training. So Ben, do we have any questions tonight?
We do have some questions. So thank you for running through all that. I learned some stuff. So, and I also, one thing that I use, I'm a slow talker, and staying slow, also being calm, it helps tremendously, like what you said in the very first slide. So some of it's just natural.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but a couple of the questions have to do with social media and email. So the first question is, how do you deal with difficult people on social media?
Yeah. Very, very common question. And, unfortunately, there's not a great answer. I would say 90% of the time when I get this question, the answer is don't engage them on social media. You are never going to win a social media fight. It's mudslinging. Nobody's going to know who's right or wrong. And so the answer is usually you don't. Now, the other thing you could do is just approach the people offline, have a meeting with them, talk with them. There used to be mechanisms on Facebook and some other platforms where you could actually go and report people that were doing these things, but those have largely gone away, and it's just kind of a free-for-all out there. But my advice is you can't win a social media fight. Because of that, it's best not to engage them, because you kind of give them credibility when you engage them. People say, oh, well, the board's now responding. There must be something here. And so ignoring them is the best. It is so hard. It is so hard, especially when they're calling out board members and saying you stole things, and it's tough. Which brings up the final point on that. Can people say bad things about you on social media? Yes. When does it become a legal issue? Okay. It has to rise to the level of defamation, really, to be actionable. And defamation has 2 big pieces to it. One, it has to be untrue. Okay, so they have to be lying about you or what you did. And the second big piece is where most of these issues die, is you have to have been damaged. Okay, in other words, you have to have been fired from your job, or you had to have missed a promotion, or you have to have, there had to be some damages that you've sustained. Somebody's just running off with their mouth that they don't like the way you're doing things isn't going to get you there. Except, there's one exception to that, and that is if they say something about you on social media that is what they call moral turpitude, okay, then that could be actionable. In other words, I can't even think of one off the, without sounding silly, but Mike looks like a pedophile might be one, or Mike is a pedophile, or Gail, whatever, likes goats, in a natural way. Those kinds of things. Moral turpitude is what's called defamation pro se, which is automatic defamation. But so you could file a lawsuit, yes, because you have automatic damages, but then you still have to prove your damages. Okay, they said you were a pedophile, Mike, online as a board member. What are your damages? If you haven't lost your job, you haven't been demoted or passed over for a promotion or something like that, then the court could give you $1 in damages. So the bad news is, to the answer to the question, is it's very, very hard to do the social media thing unless they've defamed you And I've kind of walked you through that, how hard that is for damages. So that's why it kind of circles back to, if you can, ignore it.
Well, you
All right,
answered the second Facebook related question about untruths. So thank you. So
good.
um, next question with emails. So if a homeowner sends emails to the HOA board president or board members with derogatory name calling, followed by questions, is a response required? For example, hey, dumb, you know what? When when is the security guard coming? How can these emails be ignored? If not, what's the appropriate response?
Oh, that's a great question. Great question. All right, and here's my textbook answer. Number one, you don't have to respond to homeowners' emails. Okay. There's nothing in the law that says you got to respond to a homeowner's email. Now, we want to. We want to give good service to our membership. We want to, be responsive. But there's nothing in the law that says you have to, except in very limited circumstances, which I'll tell you about. So, with that, when someone is just doing that and being obnoxious and especially calling you names, what I recommend is you acknowledge their email. We received your email, Bob, and it will be addressed at the next scheduled board of directors meeting, which is in November. Okay, that's okay. You can do that. And then after the meeting in November, Bob, we read your email and here's your answer to the things we have to answer. So, number one, the expectation of rapid responses like that is not required. And that's hard for managers too. Let me give some props to managers because they're kind of in the customer service industry, and so they want to respond. They want to be helpful in these kind of situations. But my suggestion many times is don't have to respond immediately. That's level one. Level two is the one that really just won't stop. Okay, and is calling names and making wild allegations about things that are unfounded and just being difficult. We have, and the law lets you say, look, you obviously can't use email civilly. So all your communication to the association and the president needs to be by first-class mail sent to the management company. You can do that. You can kind of take away their email privileges. There's nothing in the law that says you have to communicate with people by email. Level three is when they really are kind of dangerous, we feel. Then it's, okay, you can't email us. Don't send us thing by first-class mail. All your communication has to go through the attorney. And here's the attorney. Now that's got cost with it. And you only use those in extreme circumstances, but don't feel trapped in listening to these people do this to you. Okay. There are steps you can take. Now, one exception to that. There are only a handful of things that you must respond to a homeowner about. Okay. One is a records request. If they email you, hey, dumb, whatever, hey, dumb, what's a security guard hours? You don't have to respond to that. But if they say, I want the minutes for the last 3 years of the board of directors of the association, there's a list of documents we have to give them. You do have to respond to those. Okay, so you can't completely ignore them until November if they say these buzzwords. Second is if they claim discrimination for something. You've got to get on that and look at that and give that to the manager who will give it to the lawyer and deal with that. And then obviously if there's some safety concern, either in the neighborhood or some structural problem with the clubhouse, got to jump on those. Okay, but again, that list is very small of what you have to jump on. Everything else, if they're being difficult, choose your delay tactic. You don't have to respond to them today. All right, Ben, what else we got?
Well, just to add, we do have 2 full webinars on records request and discrimination. So if you're interested in that topic, we do have webinars you can review. But next question, we had to call a special meeting recently to reorganize our board officers to some board members behaving badly. Now they are organizing a rebellion with the homeowners, and we're worried that they will disrupt a meeting that we have next week. We have plans to outline the steps we took to reorganize, but any ideas on how to handle the crowd if it gets out of control?
Yeah. You're going to need to kind of appoint your strongest personality to run that meeting. Maybe it's your president, maybe it's your secretary, whoever it is, your strongest personality needs to be the chair of that meeting. Okay. That's number one. Number two is you need to the greatest extent possible, use Robert's Rules of Order. Okay. And there's only, probably 5 things you need to know for that purpose. Uh, but run it on an agenda, call people out of order. Okay. So just kind of use as much Robert's rules as you can to control things. Now, here's the secret that I've used, and it works really, really well. Let the membership that's there control what happens. Now, hear me out. Let's say you have 50 people in the room. You've got 10 of these dissenters who you that plan to be disruptive. Okay. My experience after being at thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of meetings at this point, is this. Let's say the president or the vice president, who the chairperson is, tries to control the meeting. Okay, you're out of order. Please sit down, sir. You're out of order. Sir, you're out of, bang on the table. Sir, you're out of order. Please sit down. If they just won't comply, then put it in the hands of the membership that's there. Okay, the president or the chairperson can say, can we get a motion, please, to limit the times that Stan or can speak? Can I get a motion? Somebody in the room, my experience is almost every time, will make a motion. I make a motion that Stan gets to talk 2 more times for 2 minutes maximum. Second, let the membership vote on that. The point is, the membership may not, the dissenters may not listen to the 5 board members sitting at the room. They may not listen to the manager, but they're going to listen to their neighbors when their neighbors shut them down. The neighbors want to go home. The neighbors are tired. They will tighten that up and they will roll it, and it's beautiful when it happens.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you referenced it in the slide, and I've seen it work many, many times. So yes, if you go in prepared with things to say and they don't let you talk, the membership will shut the loudmouth down,
Yep.
and it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. So,
Yeah.
how do you handle someone that stands their ground and doesn't admit to what appears to be very clear facts?
It depends on whether there's situationally difficult, strategically difficult, or simply difficult. So, you can use all of those things, but at the end of the day, and this will help. This goes back to the listening and getting all these emails and responding quickly and taking the abuse. You don't have to do that. Okay. Let's just say it's a board member. They won't give up. They won't let up. That contract, they don't want you to sign it, whatever the issue is. I make a motion, we sign the contract. Second. All in favor? Aye. If a majority votes aye, that person is done. Doesn't matter what they think anymore. The decision has been made. And if they try to bring it up again, we've already voted on that. We've moved on. And you can use the same strategy with the homeowners in a meeting. It's just a little bit more difficult of, hey, membership, Stan really wants to continue talking because he thinks he's right. He won't give up. Who in the room wants to give Stan 2 more minutes? Anybody want to make a motion to give Stan 2 more minutes? And I love when nobody seconds it or makes a motion. Nope. All right, Stan, thank you. Sit down. What else?
Okay, your 5-foot fence. It was determined okay by a judge and jury. You said it was in mediation, but it was agreed upon. Does that automatically change the covenant?
Yeah, and we didn't. We got creative in that case by building up the dirt to sit the 4-foot compliant fence on, making the whole thing 5 feet. So arguably we complied with the restrictions. The fence, if you measure the fence, it's only 4 feet tall. The ground doesn't say anything about the ground. So that was a very creative way to solve that problem.
Yes. So if a board can adopt rules and regulations on common property, does a conduct policy apply to bad board behavior on common property?
Ooh, that's creative. All right. So I was going to put this in the slides, but I didn't. But since you opened the door, here's the North Carolina especially, we have a statute that says that all of the governing documents of the association can be enforced through fining. Okay? You guys are familiar with that probably. Can we back that up if a rule and regulation applies to the clubhouse and you can control the conduct in the clubhouse based on these rules that the board adopts and enforces through fines? Why can't the code of conduct adopted by the board of directors, signed by the board member even, why isn't that also a governing document that can be enforced through fines? So Gail violated number 2, Gail might be subject to fines. Okay, that's the logic. Okay, that's the legal jump. Now, I'm not comfortable going that far, but I think that's where that question was going. So no, I can't. I haven't gotten comfortable with that yet. Because if you think about it, the board of directors is the one who made the rules, the board of directors adopted the rules, and the board of directors are the ones that are now enforcing the rules against another director. So it gets really messy.
So the question that everyone wants to know, should a board participate in social media? We have a shadow board using Facebook.
And when they say shadow, meaning imposter, you think?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. When Facebook came out years ago, I was doing HOA work and I thought it was going to be an amazing tool for HOAs. Just unbelievable in a positive way. I can say with almost 100% certainty, every HOA Facebook eventually ends up in the toilet. I mean, it just does. It becomes a venting platform, etc. So if you can keep your social media positive through the administration of it and deleting posts and that sort of thing, and you can keep it positive, great. Okay. Now you'll have the people complaining about deleting posts, but you got to deal with that. I know that's not your question, but my point is, if you can control it and keep it positive, it's a great tool. Yes. The imposter pages. Okay. Very, very difficult to deal with. There's only 2 strategies that I found to be remotely helpful. Facebook does still have an imposter page process to where if you want to take the time to show them, I'm the elected board of director, I run this page, this is a different page, and you can show them it's truly an imposter, I've heard that they will take it down or they'll make them change the name. Okay. I wouldn't bank on that. Okay. If you can imagine how many imposter pages are out there and what they have to deal with. So that is one strategy. The other strategy is just notify your membership frequently that this is not a page supported by the association. This is not our page. We don't administer it. We don't control it. We don't post to it, and send out a mailing that says that. Put it in your annual meeting notice. Mention it at the annual meeting. Yeah, it's very hard.
Okay, 3
I'm
questions
sorry,
left.
Ben. I'm sorry, Ben. One of the questions they asked, I didn't answer. Should we participate in it? I go back to my earlier answer. My advice is not to. I'm the board of directors of this association, and this information they're posting is wrong. And here's why it's wrong. You feel good, feels great. The next thing you know, there's 16 more responses from the other side that tells not only why you're wrong on that, but the other 16 things that are wrong because now you've given them oxygen. So my advice is not to do it.
Yep. Okay, 3 questions left, and we're almost out of time. But how do we deal with a homeowner who is difficult but may also have cognitive age-related issues?
The reason I'm hesitating is because there's a couple of different legal theories that jump in here. The same strategies apply that we've been over tonight, and you might soften them a little bit or tweak them a little bit, not much. The same things apply. Here's the difference. If they are disabled, okay, and that's a whole nother presentation, but if they're disabled, which basically means they have substantially difficulty with one or more of life's basic activities, walking, talking, hearing, seeing, working, sleeping, if they have substantial difficulty with one of those things, they are probably disabled, legally disabled. When people are legally disabled, the association has an absolute duty to reasonably accommodate that disability. So we may have a duty, if we think they are disabled, we have a duty to treat them a little differently in all of these scenarios that we've talked about. Okay. So that's a really big question, and that's a small answer for tonight's purposes. But just know the flag that I want to go up in your head is, okay, Steve told us how to deal with a situationally difficult person, but this person looks like they're disabled, maybe mentally disabled. So we probably have some different things we're supposed to do here. That's as far as you can get for tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tough question,
It
tough
is, but a
issue to
great
deal with.
question.
Yeah.
Great question.
What is the process if a board member makes disparaging and defamatory statements about another board member to homeowners and or vendors?
Use the strategies that we've talked about tonight. Are they situationally, strategic, simply, try to resolve it that way. Okay, that's kind of what this thing's about tonight. If that doesn't work, then you're really, and people hate this answer, and I get it. Sometimes people are allowed to say terrible things about people. And if you can't get them to stop using the strategies we've talked about, then you have to wait until they have defamed the person, legally defamed them, and you have a legal claim for defamation, which we've talked about, and you're willing to pay a lawyer a couple $1,000, to try to shut it down. It's awful. I mean, you have to put up with a lot
Yeah.
before the law
Okay.
steps in.
I think this is the last question. But appreciate all your information on narcissist. We have one on our board, and sometimes he is right. But he also does not follow his own rules and or the rules of the association. So similar to what you talked about with code of conduct and enforcing it on common property, how do we enforce rules against a board member?
Yeah. Board members are members of the association, and all rules should be equally enforced against them, number one. So if you're talking about he violates the pool rules or something, go after him. Okay. You have to. You don't have a choice. The way you would deal with a narcissist on your board of directors is just simply outvote them when they're wrong. You have 5 board members, you got a narcissist here, get a majority of the board members to vote, and it's done. And if it's Stan, or I guess it's Gail on our board of directors who's a narcissist, Gail, we've already voted on that. Well, you're wrong. We've already voted on that. Well, you're wrong. We've already voted on that. Let's move on. Yeah, you just use kind of the voting process and the power of the rules to do it.
Okay, I lied about the last question.
That's
But
fine.
last one. Homeowner, currently the admin of our community Facebook page. Can we remove that responsibility from this homeowner since they are managing the community Facebook page and take it over by the board?
I'm sorry, Ben. So you had an administrator who was on the board and now they're not on the board?
That's what it sounds like, yes.
Yeah. That happens more often than you would think. And for some reason, the administrator, when they step off the board, they want to continue administrating the Facebook page. How do we get that power from them? There's really not an easy way to do that. And when I say easy, I mean I could probably come up with some potential legal claims to sue them over it or threaten a suit that is actually property of the association. We could argue that. I'd have to do some research to see if social media can be property, but I equate it to if the secretary kept the minute book and took it home, she's no longer the secretary, no longer on the board, give us our minutes back. Okay? It's stolen property, basically. Could we do that on the social media side? That access is our property, give it back. I could get creative with that. Yes.
Okay, well, those are the last official questions related to the topic tonight. The other two have to do with our webinars. So we do host these webinars the third Thursday of every month, and they are all posted on the camsmgt.com website under video resources. So if you haven't been there, lots of great information. We do hope you'll check that out. The other one is what's next month's topic. Right now, I think it is on trees, and it's going to be conducted by an arborist. So it happens to coincide with the North Carolina State Conference for CAI. So all of our attorneys in North Carolina will be at the state conference, as most of our managers, including myself. So, but we will get that information out shortly about the topic. So We do thank you for your attendance tonight. Steve, thank you again. And everybody that is still with us, we hope to see you next time.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
all. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.